Okay. All right. So I'm really excited for our first ever Lehigh Valley JAJAJA member Pecha Kucha series. So Pecha Kucha, you might have heard in either in academic conferences or I've had it in other societies and organizations that use this format, but it actually started in Japan where there was an architecture firm in Tokyo that wanted more pictures in their presentations, less text and more pictures. So that's the idea of Pecha Kucha, and so more pictures, talk more or talk less and show more. So this whole feature of their series is coming from our community members saying that they want to hear from each other, and each of our members have a story to tell or a passion to share. And so this is going to be a fun and hopefully, relatively quick and not long-winded, and really just a fun way to get to know one another in the community while we're all quarantining at home. So tonight, I'm excited to share with you my passion for Japanese home cooking and some of the resources that I've found along the way to be really helpful and accessible to the Lehigh Valley. So here we go. Let's see. Oops, there we go. So my story with Japanese home cooking is really from home. And I grew up with a really strong influence of my mom and my grandmother. I just have images of my baba really meticulously deboning a yakizakana, right? Like a saba, and I just loved it. And growing up in San Diego, California, we had a lot of the stores and the restaurants with authentic Japanese flavors and dishes easily accessible. And lo and behold, when I left California and lived in Chicago and now in the eastern part of Pennsylvania and Bethlehem, it became a lot more challenging to find authentic Japanese food. And my love for kind of tinkering at home began. And then it was a search for the right cookbooks to online, forums and things like that. So yeah, and it's that feeling of comfort and of home and that flavor of really a home cooked meal that you can't really beat and at a restaurant or anything like that. So I hope that this presentation is a way for you to feel more adventurous, I guess. So if it's a new arena of cuisine for you to cook, but also a fun way to just get to know some of your roots or a new culture that you're trying to explore, especially in Japanese culture. So here we go. Here's the first book that I'd love to share with you, and it's called Japanese Home Cooking. Pretty straightforward. It's by Sonoko Sakai, who actually was born in New York to Japanese parents. I believe her father worked for a Japanese airline and one of the first Japanese professionals to live in the U.S. after World War II. So she actually grew up moving from Tokyo to San Francisco to Mexico City to LA, and she saw her mom maintain a Japanese kitchen, basically. So she found local resources, local ingredients that could be used in Japanese cooking. And so she really just has a way with telling her story. It's her origin story in the book. And as you're reading it, you really feel like you're in her home kitchen. And what's really neat about Sonoko Sakai too is that she was actually featured in one of the episodes of the Big Root podcast. And for those of us that have met Toshiki Nakashige, he's the founder of the podcast and the host. And so Sonoko Sakai came to their kitchen and really told them the story of why dashi and having authentic, simple ingredients, fresh ingredients really makes the whole Japanese meal. As you know, dashi is like the staple of Japanese pantry. So she does a fantastic job. Her pictures in the book are beautiful. And if you have a chance to listen to the episode, I believe it's the December 13th episode. So I highly recommend. And here we have the book, the cookbook, and kind of, it's a full book, Kintsugi Wellness, by Candace Kamai. So I came across Candace Kamai's book through the U.S.-Japan Council webinar. She talked about, I mean, it was, as you can see, it was May 12th, so in the prime of the pandemic, and us quarantining at home, feeling pretty low. This book became my savior and a meditation just by reading it. As you can see, the title, Kintsugi Wellness, or Kintsugi, is a Japanese term for mending the scars with gold. And so that golden healing process can be applied to anything from what we put into our body as nourishment, to how our mentality and our sense of gamma and ganbatte. These are terms and expressions that are so ubiquitous in Japanese culture that she really tells that story throughout her recipes that she highlights, all the way to the travel that she's done, even to overcome her own challenges. And she's also a San Diegan by childhood, so I feel a personal connection, as well as she's a Hapa, a Japanese American with a Japanese mother and an American father. So coming from someone with that JA story, it's an interesting take on the Japanese cuisines or dishes that tend to be more traditional. She adds a healthy take or a fresh take by including gluten-free options and substitutes for soy sauce, and just a really nice, refreshing, and modern take in Japanese cuisine. So I really appreciated her delivery on that in this book. And then I have Japanese Cooking, A Simple Art. It looks like a textbook because of its precision and its specificity, from the way that you cut the fish to how do you prepare your placing of plates. It really shows a respect and a nod to the art of Japanese cuisine and cooking. You can really tell that all of the generations and generations of chefs that you see presenting a gourmet meal at a Japanese restaurant, it took years to perfect. And I use this textbook basically to see where the high level of gourmet or standard of Japanese cuisine is, and then I kind of dial it back to see, okay, what can I realistically do at home and know where, you know, the standard of Japanese cuisine is. So this is a really informative book, and I use it more as a reference for sure. And so here in the Lehigh Valley, we make do with what we've got, right? And I've learned from living from San Diego to Chicago to now on the East Coast here that you're just gonna Google it. So here's what you get when you Google Asian markets in the Lehigh Valley. Here are the top 3 that I frequently go, but there are more. And as you can see, we have pretty much these little storefronts that have anything that's in the Asian diaspora. So the Chinese products to the Korean products to even Japanese products too. And, you know, surprise, but I did get a lot of my core ingredients from Wegmans. Wegmans has a pretty nice selection in their one aisle of Asian products. So you kind of pick and choose, and as you can see, it takes about 20 minutes depending on where you are in the Lehigh Valley, but that's not too bad. And so you kind of have a fun time getting to know the areas in the Lehigh Valley by going to these destination grocery stores. But then for those who want to actually take, you know, an afternoon or a dining experience at one of these grocery stores, there is Maido, which is a marketplace in greater Philadelphia, Ardmore Mall. There's a wonderful little as you can see in the picture, a counter and a dine-in experience where you get to see the mama-sans really going hard and, you know, making that really home-cooked meal as you get your udon or yakiniku or things like that, or karaage. They do a really good job of delivering that home-cooked meal in a dining experience. And then next to that dining area, there's a whole grocery store fully stocked with produce and obviously snacks, Japanese snacks of all kinds. So if you're going to that part of Pennsylvania and just outside of Philly, I highly recommend taking a stop there. And then if you want to go the other direction towards New York City, we've got New Jersey, Edgewater, New Jersey, with the Mitsuwa Marketplace. And I don't know about you, but this is the place where we go to stock up on our Japanese foods. So kind of like Maido, but a lot bigger. As you can see, I've got a list of the other stores that are actually just outside in the shopping area of Mitsuwa. So Mitsuwa is a grocery store that also has a food court. And so you'll see the books of Kinokuniya, which is a classic Japanese bookstore chain, Shiseido, Daiso for 100 yen goods, like 199-cent goods. And then there's even a shabu-shabu restaurant right along the Hudson River. So if you want to make it a day trip, it does take about an hour and a half, depending on where you are in the Lehigh Valley, but it is worth the trip. And definitely make sure that your budget is allowing for it too. I've definitely ventured there with some of our friends in the JAJAJA community. We carpool together, we stock up, we have dinner or lunch depending on the day, the time of day, and we definitely stop in one of those areas. The food court has anything from ramen to a bakery, a cafe, a confectionery, almost to be like so many different places and classic Japanese flavors that it's just one of those things. If you're craving it, you definitely want to go, and it's definitely worth the drive. And then we have New York City, of course. We're definitely close enough to where we, you know, take a day or take a weekend to go out to New York City. So when you are in Manhattan, you got to check out these places. So top 3 here is Sunrise Mart. I've got Sunrise Mart, Dainobu, and Katagiri. And so as you can see in the Google Maps section there's definitely multiple locations along the Manhattan Peninsula. So if wherever you are, I make it a point, if I'm ever in New York City, I'm going to Sunrise Mart, and I have friends in East Village, so I make it a whole trip and I stock up. And then you have Katagiri, who deems as the oldest Japanese grocery store in the US. So New York really has it all. And then you have folks that maybe want to bypass the big city and actually want to go to Brooklyn. And actually in South Brooklyn, you'll see Industrial City is a up-and-coming, booming place with a brand new Japan Village, which is owned by Sunrise Mart. And so there is a grocery store, a fully stocked, you know, produce and fresh fish area, and a food court inside the Japan Village area. So this is, I mean, as you can see in the picture, it is gorgeous. And it's one of those places that you want to take your friends that are in town and visiting you, and you're making a trip to New York. I would put this on the list for sure. And then I have this wonderful resource by Namiko Chen. So she is a master social entrepreneur. She's figured it out. She has a YouTube video channel, to a Facebook, to an Instagram, to even an Amazon page that shows and highlights some of the products that she uses. She's a blogger. She started off blogging and showcasing different Japanese recipes, and really she's based in San Francisco. She has kids that she travels around. So now she has a travel blog as well. So it's just a really great resource. She now has an ebook with a list of 30 recipes that I highly recommend, even just to take a look at. But I found her just by Googling, you know, how can I make tsukemono, and just one cookbook comes up almost every single recipe. She definitely has a repertoire of really bright pictures and really clean and easy to follow recipes. So for those of us that are new to Japanese cooking at home, this is a great on-ramp to, you know, before committing to a full-on book, a cookbook. So I recommend that. And so tonight I'm going to show how I make the matcha marble pound cake with Namiko-san's recipe from Just One Cookbook.